Have we got a fruity deep dive for you this week? We've got heat, we've got humidity, and yes, they're going to mix together to create some big thunderstorms. Where are we going to see them? How hot is it going to get? Is it a classic Spanish plume? We'll be answering all of those questions, or at least trying to, in this week's Met Office Deep Dive. Thank you for being there. If you could hit the thumbs up, that will be fantastic. Please also leave a comment. Let us know if you like this kind of stuff. Let us know if you've got any other questions about weather and climate. We may answer them in a deep dive. We may answer them in our Friday Weather Studio Live as well. We do try and read all of the comments, so thank you. Please do keep them coming. And share the love. Let other Met heads know that we do this deep dive every Tuesday, because some people don't know that we do it, even though we've been doing it for a few years now. And we love doing it. We want to keep doing it as well. So if you can spread the love, that would help us out. As I said, quite an interesting one this week. A classic summer setup, if you like. We've got the heat rising, we've got the humidity rising, and yes, that may well lead to some big thunderstorms. Let's take a look at the big picture first of all. For the past few days, well, since summer started, really, if not the week before, we've had weather systems coming in from the Atlantic. And yes, they've been bringing often spells of cloud and rain and not a huge amount of warmth. You can see the systems coming in here one after the other through the weekend. That was Saturday's rainfall, about a bit of brightness on Sunday, then another system moving in at the moment. But things are starting to change. This area of cloud, this area of low pressure isn't whizzing across the country, and that's because of a shift in the jet stream. You can see from the flow where the jet has been for the past week or so, generally coming in from the west or the southwest, but that is starting to shift. Let's take a look now. So this is where we're at. So that swirl of cloud onto the Atlantic, that is this area of low pressure. And the jet stream has been kind of in this position, but a little further west, taking low pressure systems with it. But now we're seeing more of a wiggle developing in the jet stream, starting off that ripple down over the Americas, and a bit like, you know, giving a rope, a little flick like that. That is then pulsing downstream, and what's happening now is, instead of the jet stream pushing low pressure systems this way, we're getting more of an amplified jet stream. If we fast forward to tomorrow, that jet is now going down and up here, and so that low is kind of trapped. It's not being pushed along by the jet, it's trapped in this trough, and it's just going to slowly meander towards the UK over the next few days. Ahead of it, it's allowing high pressure to build. That's why we're seeing fine weather on Wednesday for most places, and temperatures rising as well. Notice this little arm of the jet stream, though. That is going to be crucial to developments over the next 24 to 48 hours, as we shall see shortly. But basically, for Wednesday, as the jet drives south and then to the north again, this is a similar setup to what we've had for much of spring, allowing high pressure to build in this upper ridge. At the surface, we get high pressure, and that's going to bring most places a fine day tomorrow. And if we put the surface winds on, take off the jet stream. These are not actually the surface winds, these are the low-level winds. I've changed them slightly, so they're a bit above the surface, but they're the low-level winds, and you can see where they're coming from. And they're drawing up our air from the south, from Spain, where the air is pretty warm at the moment, and that is why our temperatures are going to be rising. So let's take a look at the temperatures first of all for the next few days. Go through that. We can see that today, nothing too remarkable, getting into the low 20s across the southeast, close to the average really for the time of year, but look at that. Those temperatures rising over the next few days. It's going to be warm and humid tomorrow, probably the highest temperature maybe in northern England, away from that northeast coast inland, mid-20s, 26, maybe 27 Celsius. Then on Thursday, a bit of an uncertainty because there's going to be more cloud around and the first batch of thunderstorms moving through, so that opens up a bit more of a question mark. And then the hottest day of this spell likely to be Friday across these central and eastern parts, where temperatures certainly in and around London, up towards Cambridge, across East Anglia, in the high 20s with 29 probably the top temperature. Notice it's not hot everywhere, however. It does get warmer in Scotland and in Northern Ireland, but we're not seeing the heat there really. Temperatures just ticking up to a little bit above average. But even though the temperatures aren't rising that much, pretty much everywhere we'll notice, I think, that the humidity rising, and it's going to get warmer by night, as we can see here. If we look at the next few nights, those temperatures getting into the mid-teens across the south and staying in the teens further north as well. Thursday night, Friday night, And then it turns a little cooler, does turn a little fresher as we go through the weekend. It'll take a while for your house to cool down, but certainly the next few nights you will notice that, because we haven't really experienced that too much. When it was warm through the spring, often the nights were still chilly. This will be the first time we're getting quite warm nights over the rest of this week. So the nights are going to be warm. That's probably when you notice it most. But by day it'll be warm and humid as well. Some sunny skies, but not all sunny skies. Let's take a look at the temperatures when you compare them to average, and we can see, as I said, pretty close to average at the moment. These are Wednesday's temperatures, and you can see they're kind of peak there, either side of the Pennines really, low levels across East Wales, Northwest England, Northeast England, away from that eastern coast. Then on Thursday, really will depend on the cloud cover, the highest temperatures when compared to average across eastern parts of England, and then a warmer day for eastern Scotland on Friday, and the highest temperatures across the central and eastern parts. So again, eastern Midlands down towards the western home counties up towards East Anglia. That's where we're likely to see the top temperatures on Friday. And then if we fast forward, you can see that Saturday we're starting to see that fresher air coming into western areas, but still temperatures above average across the east. So that's the detail for the temperatures. As I said, they will be rising pretty much everywhere. Certainly the humidity is what most of us will notice most. It's going to be close. It's going to be muggy. Is it going to be sunny? Well, that will depend on the rainfall that we see. This is the bigger picture. As we go through today, we're seeing that ridge starting to build, the high pressure building in at the surface. By the time we get to Wednesday, the middle of Wednesday, the jet stream is here, the high pressure is well and truly in, the winds at the surface are pretty light, gently wafting up some warmer air, and you can see that many areas not expecting much cloud tomorrow. It's been quite grey across the south today, but tomorrow's a much sunnier day in the south. Again, fine weather for southern Scotland and northern England. But down here, the first clutch of thunderstorms starting to brew up. And we could well start to see some heavy downpours coming into the southeastern corner by the time we get to Wednesday evening. So that's the first watch point this week. This zone of thundery showers coming up from the south. That pushes north as we go through. Let's take that off actually and do it on a UK scale. So that comes up during Thursday into the southwest, some heavy bursts of rain for Republic of Ireland as well as then Northern Ireland. It loses some intensity as we go into Thursday and it works further north. It becomes less kind of a thunderstorm risk and more just frontal rain pushing northwards into western Scotland, Northern Ireland. So yeah, it'll be a bit soggy, it'll be a bit breezy, it'll be a big change from Wednesday, but it shouldn't be anything too heavy at this stage. And it kind of fizzles out as it works its way then across parts of central and eastern England. And then into Friday, well, we keep the legacy of a weather front out west with some cloud and rain, some uncertainty about the position of that. It could be further west, it could be further east. But again, a good chunk of central and eastern Britain looking fine and sunny on Friday, which is why we'll see the highest temperatures in this zone, because should generally have the sunniest skies and eastern Scotland as well. But look at this. This is that next batch. We're going to get 2 rounds of heavy, potentially thundery downpours coming north this week. First one Wednesday night and then into Thursday, and the next one then really late Friday night and into Saturday, and some angry looking downpours on there, some really bright colours. Again, don't take this as gospel. This is a few days away, and with these thundery downpours there's always some uncertainty about the exact position, so don't take that as gospel, but just showing you that zone of potentially very heavy rain, thunderstorms, lightning, large hail, gusty winds tracking their way northwards Friday night and then into Saturday. And by the time you get to Saturday, you've got actually a circulation. You've got low pressure swinging in across the country. Still some heavy rain there Saturday morning coming into the northwest. And then further south, we'll have some showers coming in, but these will be a different breed. They won't be the same intensity because we've changed to fresher air coming in. So there's not the same amount of energy with these showers, and they'll be moving through on the breeze. These are kind of more like the showers that we've seen of late, zipping in from the Atlantic. Could still have some thunder mixed in, but there'll be fresher showers if you see coming in from the west by the time we get into the weekend, because as we saw earlier, those temperatures will be dipping off and we'll have lost some of the humidity by the time we get to Saturday and Sunday. And then Sunday, actually, a decent day again for a good chunk of England and Wales. And as we saw earlier, it won't be as warm. Those temperatures will have dipped off a little bit by the time we get to Sunday. We're looking at those highs getting, closer to average. Could still see, low 20s across the east with some sunshine. So yes, it is getting hot this week in places, but not everywhere. It is going to feel quite humid, but it's probably not going to last too long as we go through the weekend. Fresher air, but we do have to watch those two zones of thundery showers heading their way northwards. Wednesday night and Thursday, and then again on Saturday. Let's take a little closer look at that rainfall coming in. If we do the accumulations, let's show the little spikes because they're quite funky. That's the rain coming in. So these are the 3-hour rainfall accumulations. Anything orangey red is 25 millimetres in that 3-hour period. And if we just bend the map down, you can see that actually northern France could get a real paggering from that first zone. So this is through the night. Look at that, those spikes there, and across the Republic of Ireland, some quite heavy downpours coming their way northwards through the early hours, then into parts of Wales, southwest England, across Northern Ireland as well. That then calms down a little bit, maybe some individual spikes, but the intensity loses a bit as it tracks its way northwards, and we don't see as many thunderstorms further south and east. But yeah, some big accumulations in places are possible. As always with these summer storms, it is going to be hit and miss. So don't take those spikes too literally, but it shows you that one place could get, 30, 40 millimetres of rain, whereas just a few miles away, you may not get much at all. That's the nature of summer storms. They're very much hit and miss. So that's Wednesday night and into Thursday morning, calming down a little bit on Thursday. If we then look at the extended charts and show those angry clutches of storms coming north. Again, let's put the spikes on, tilt the map so you can see it a little bit better. Again, look at that. Northern France likely to see some of the heaviest downpours there as we go through Friday afternoon with the heat building across northern France. And then as we head through the night, whoa, look at that. Look at that. Ping! Jumping up, jumping out of there, some heavy downpours. Again, don't take that too literally. This is even further ahead. This is into Saturday, well, Friday evening into Saturday. And there's quite a bit of uncertainty, as I'll show you in a minute, about exactly where we get the rising air, where we get the thunderstorms. But again, just showing you the potential for dropping quite a lot of rain in a short space of time. There's a lot of energy involved in this because of where the air is coming from. So again, it all calms down a little bit as we go through Saturday, and the rainfall amounts not quite as intense, the peaks not quite as high as we head across into Scotland and Northern Ireland, but it could still be quite wet in that zone. It's more the persistent nature of the rain coming into Western Scotland during the weekend. So a few things to watch out for. These storms are going to be high energy. They will drop a lot of rain in a short space of time. One other thing I wanted to show actually was the winds picking up on Thursday in here. Let's I take that off. This zone, so ahead of this weather front in the east, could see some quite lively gusts of winds because the air here is actually what we're going to call quite stable. It's not rising too much, and in this zone we could get kind of a layer of trapped winds brushing along the east coast of England into eastern parts of Scotland. That's quite an unusual wind direction coming over there, so the North York Moors creating some interesting gusty winds as we go through Thursday. So that's an extra feature to watch out for, not just the lightning, not just the temperatures, but actually some gusty winds coming in across these eastern areas as we go through Thursday also. So plenty going on in the forecast, plenty going on, as you might imagine, over the next few days. And one more thing I wanted to show you, just to highlight that uncertainty about Friday night and Saturday's rainfall. When we run the model many times. So what I showed you there was the Met Office computer model, the main deterministic run, as we call it, of where it thinks the rain is going to be on Saturday. But when we run the model many times, if you watch the deep dive, you'll know about this. This is called an ensemble forecast. So you tweak the initial situation ever so slightly and generate lots of different potential outcomes. And this is showing the rainfall pattern from those different variations, those slight variations. They're called the postage stamps. If I just play it, it might zoom in, yeah, zoom into a couple here and shows you that variation. They're kind of, I mean, they're all pretty similar. They've got those bright pink colours and the oranges and the whites, which show the heaviest rainfall, but they're in slightly different areas for each one. And that's typical in this kind of setup for, what, 4 days ahead. We're not going to pin down the exact position of these storms coming in until we get much closer to the time. But some of them are showing that Eastern England's dry, other ones are showing, like this one, number 29, that actually Eastern England gets the worst of it, and we get the heavier rain here. So they really do show lots and lots of different scenarios. I mean, they're all kind of telling the same story. Yes, we're going to get some heavy rain. Yes, we're going to get some thunderstorms moving northwards, but the exact location, too hard to pin down at this kind of range. And as I said, that's fairly typical for the summer. So what we're doing now is just flagging that we are likely to see some thunderstorms, and then, you know, you really need to keep up to date with the forecast, especially if you've got plans for the weekend. So download this weekend. I'll talk more about that in a moment, and we'll have a look at Glastonbury prospects as well if you are interested in the festivals. But I just thought I'd show you that to show you that it's not nailed on where we're going to see the heaviest rainfall, but we are pretty much nailed on to see some very lively downpours. While we're on the subject of the thundery showers, this projection is showing the probability or the chance of seeing certain things. And this is quite interesting because they're highlighting the same area for rainfall. So this is the probability or the chance of seeing 10 millimetres of rainfall from Wednesday night and Thursday's thundery showers. It's really picking out South Wales and southwest England there. That's where the highest probability of seeing 10 millimetres of rainfall is, and that is the probability of lightning. So that's highlighting again that northern France lightning zone, but also the same kind of areas. So it's where I am actually, where Met Office HQ is, Devon and parts of South Wales there for Thursdays. But if we look at Friday's one, it's quite interesting the difference we've got here, because this is now the same thing. So it's the probability of 10 millimetres of rain. It's actually highlighting that Western Scotland is the most likely area, or the area with the highest chance, the yellow colours in there. That's where the highest probability is. But actually, the highest chance of lightning is from that clutch, that heavier clutch of thunderstorms coming up potentially across East Anglia and the southeast. That more eastern one has the highest risk of lightning mixed in with it. So the different flavours of those two different types of thundery downpours that we're going to see over the course of the next 4 or 5 days. So lots to talk about, lots going on. Are we going to see a Spanish plume? That's a big question that's being talked about at the moment. What is a Spanish plume? Well, basically a plume is an area of air, and Spanish suggesting that it's coming up from Spain or that kind of part of the world. Now, the true definition of a Spanish plume is really quite specific, but in recent years it's been diluted a little bit, partly by the media, partly by meteorologists, and yeah, a lot of the time this kind of setup that we have at the moment is described as a Spanish plume, and it's not actually a true Spanish plume. Now, Spanish plumes are interesting and really useful to understand because they generate a lot of our summer rainfall. Most of our summer downpours come from a Spanish plume type setup where we've got warm air wafting up from Iberia, from Spain and Portugal, and dropping thundery showers across the UK. This is where we get some of our biggest thunderstorms from, large hail, gusty winds, and often a lot of lightning as well, and potentially tornadoes too. But as I say, not all Spanish plumes are absolute classic Spanish plumes. A Spanish plume is a kind of a thought, it's a meteorological ideal, if you like, and actually the weather never really quite plays ball. Just like most weather fronts aren't your classic weather front, most Spanish plumes aren't your classic Spanish plume that you'd find in a textbook. But what is a Spanish plume? Well, it's a zone of air coming up from Spain, but its exact source region is really quite vital. First of all, let's take a look at what we're talking about, because it's quite interesting when we look at the geography of Spain, why that plays a part. If we head to Spain, that's a good place to start if we're talking about a Spanish plume. Zoom in a little bit and tilt the map. You can see actually across central and northern Spain, in this area area here. It's called the Meseta Central. My GCSE Spanish coming in a treat there. Miss Cochran will be proud of me. That's hills, high grounds, and quite high ground, covering quite a broad area of Spain. Madrid, actually, I think I'm right in saying, is the highest capital in Europe, which is not necessarily what you'd expect. Most of us experience Iberia around the coast and by the sea, but this part of Spain, not particularly well populated away from Madrid, is actually quite a lot of hills here. And at the moment, as you can imagine, it's pretty hot and especially warm at the moment. Temperatures have really been rising over Iberia over recent times. Let's now put those low-level winds on, and if we play through the next kind of 24 hours or so, we can watch as those winds start to switch direction. There's low pressure developing off the coast of Portugal, and those winds start to push northwards. And as you can imagine, those winds are going to push that plume of air that's sitting over the mountains. So it's not at sea level, it's higher up in the atmosphere. Those mountains are about 600-700 meters up, and the air above those mountains gets hot and dry, and it doesn't just sit at 600 meters. It goes up up to about 2,000-3,000 meters, 2 or 3 kilometers up in the atmosphere. So you've got a wodge of hot, dry air, and the winds, as you can see, are pushing that further north over the next day or so. If we zoom out a little bit more, you can see that hot, dry air getting up to the UK. That's why temperatures are rising, because the warm air is moving in, but the really warm air, which isn't sitting at the surface, remember, it's a little bit higher up, is drifting up towards northern France and then up towards the southwest of the UK by the time we get to Wednesday evening. Now, if we take a look at what's going on, this is where my other GCSE skill comes in, my artistry. Oh, there's me cheat code. I was doing my homework, just to prove I was doing my homework. So what we have across the UK on Wednesday is a zone of warming air down to the south. So it's warm here and reasonably moist. You've got some humidity in there as well. But what then happens is that air, that wodge of air from Spain, comes in across and sits above that warm air. And this air is hotter than the air at the surface, because it's been heated up over those mountains of Spain, and it's very dry. We call that an elevated mixed layer of air. It's hot and it's dry, and it comes in, it sits over that warm air at the south, and what it does, it acts like a lid. It kind of traps the warm, moist air at the surface. Now, in a true Spanish plume, what you then find higher up in the sky is you introduce cold air, a zone of colder air aloft, either from a cold front or some other mechanism that generates lift, and eventually you get rid of this lid of hot air, and the air will rise all the way through the atmosphere. And when you get air rising from the surface all the way to the top of the mesosphere, you get thunderstorms. The only cloud that goes from the surface all the way up to 30,000 feet is a cumulonimbus. And that's how you generate thunderstorms. And it's this hot, dry zone, that is the Spanish plume. That has come up from those mountains over Spain and pushed its way northwards. And when you get that classic setup that we have at the moment, that's kind of what we've got here. If we fast forward to tomorrow and look on that bigger picture, what's happening is those winds coming up from the south, the hot air coming in at those higher levels. And what happens is this little dig in the jet stream, remember I talked about that earlier, that is what breaks the lid. It creates forcing, it creates lift, and it breaks that lid, and everything goes bang. Another way of looking at it is through a slice of the atmosphere using tephigrams. So this is kind of another cross section. This is from northern France, from our friends at windy.com, sampling the Spanish plume, if you like, coming northwards. Now this is temperatures along the bottom here. Called a tephigram. In America they call it a T-skew-gram. But instead of temperatures going up like that, the line of constant temperatures goes off at an angle like that. So if it was 20 degrees all the way, it would go up at this angle. That's the 0 degree isotherm. So that's where it's 0 degrees. that is effectively height. It's actually measured in pressure. It's effectively height. So you cross-section, broadly speaking, through the atmosphere. This red line is the temperature of the atmosphere as sampled at this point in northern France. And you can see that the temperature goes like that. And the blue line is here. In fact, if I play fast forward, you can have a closer look at it. The blue line is the wet bulb temperature, and effectively the closer those two lines are, the more saturated the air. So you can see up here the air is pretty saturated. That's where we've got cloud. Now the warm air wants to rise from the surface, from down here, but it's just not hot enough because of this. See that? We call that a nose. And you can see why. Looks a bit like a nose. You've got to get past that nose in order for the air to rise to create the thunderstorms. But notice in here, you've got that separation. That is the Spanish plume. That is the dry zone, not at the surface, higher up. There is the Spanish plume. There's the dry air, and the air that low air, the air right at the surface can't get past that nose to rise and create the thunderstorms. So there is an example, cross-section through the atmosphere. That's the Spanish plume before it actually rises and goes up. But just a few hours later, we have realized those temperatures. The jet stream, that forcing high in the sky, has done its job, and now it's leaning much more back. The temperature of the surface has risen above that nose, and the air is going up, and we've got whoosh, moisture going all the way up through the atmosphere. And this isn't the most moist that it could be, this example. They could be closer, those lines, and when they are, then you've got thunderstorms going all the way up, and that's what generates those thundery showers that we see. So that is, in essence, what we're looking at. Are we seeing a true Spanish plume this time round, either on Wednesday night or on Thursday, or on Friday rather? Well, if we look at the source region of our air, these are the trajectories of our air parcels at 700, 600 and 500 hectopascals, basically 3,000 to 5,000 meters. And you can see that the air, well, yeah, it is coming from Spain, but it originates a little further south. It actually originates across northern Africa. So you could argue it's not a true Spanish plume, but it is being affected by the mountains of central and northern Spain. It's going across that area. So, well, is it a true Spanish plume or not? I'll leave you to decide for that one. But the air is actually being sourced from northern Africa, and that actually gives us an extra element to these thundery showers, because they're likely to have picked up some Saharan dust. So when it does rain over the next few days, don't be surprised if your car is a little dirtier in the mornings after that rain has come through, because it could be quite dusty. The air, there's quite a bit of Saharan dust in the air source region at the moment. So it may well be that you wake up when there's little brown splodges all over your car from the overnight thunderstorms. And another thing that this does, when there's more dust particles in the atmosphere, it increases the likelihood of lightning. There's more condensation nuclei, and you've got a greater chance of getting more lightning because there's more dust in the atmosphere as well. So yeah, really interesting to see where that air has come from. That's from the system through Wednesday night and into Thursday. Plenty going on then with our weather system. Oh, just one more thing I want to talk about with the Spanish plume. The one on Friday, actually, we put the rainfall on, is more generated by this cold front coming northwards rather than thunderstorms coming in. So, again, probably not a classic Spanish plume in that sense, with these fronts coming northwards and generating their own rainfall rather than just that destabilization of the hot air from the south. So, again, they're never quite the textbook classics, but two examples of almost Spanish plumes coming through the rest of this week. What about looking beyond that? Well, actually not too far beyond that. Let's get back to the weekend, because I promised festival goers a glimpse at what could happen this weekend. Donington Park, a place I've been to watch the motorbikes many, many years ago, is where Download Festival, I've never been to Download Festival, but let's zoom in a little bit. We should be able to get Leicester on the map. Yeah, so in here, showers likely on Thursday from that first pulse of heavy down, not the same intensity by the time they get this far north. So if you're going on Thursday, getting set up, that kind of thing, well, there might be a few showers around on Thursday. Friday, for the first day of the festival, looks pretty good, actually. I mean, it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid, not particularly great for camping in a tent. But by the time you get to late Friday afternoon, increasing chance of seeing some of those thundery showers. Now, it's impossible to say exactly, as we've already discussed, when and where, but certainly I would say Leicestershire in the firing line for some of those thunderstorms, most likely Friday night and into Saturday. So that is something to take into account if you are going to download this weekend. It's going to be warm, it's going to be humid. Friday looks like a nice day. Risk of thunderstorms Friday evening. Saturday, possibly showery, but not too many showers, and Sunday looks like a decent day as well, and it will be turning fresher through the weekend also, but be prepared for some quite high temperatures on Friday and watch out for those thunderstorms too. What about the other big festival on the horizon? Glastonbury. I mentioned this in our TikTok yesterday. You can go and check that out on our TikTok channel. Just wanted to show you this because I thought it was fun. These are the different flavours of weather that we could see. Aidan's done lots of deep dives on this before, and we've talked about them before, the different types of weather flavour that you can get when you break down the weather into different kind of pigeonholes, rather than saying it's definitely going to be hot and sunny. Different kind of influences of our weather. These are the main 8 types, and that then breaks down into a further 30 categories. As I say, Aidan's done a deep dive on this before. You can check that out for more details, but I wanted to show you this. I'm pinpointed Glastonbury there, pretty much, or close to Glastonbury. Near enough. And if we look at the flavour at the moment, Scandinavian high is dominating at the moment. Week 2, next week. Let's take the rainfall off, because I just wanted to show you this. Oh, that's gone. Need to keep that on. So, there we go. Week 3 is actually when Glastonbury starts. This is Tuesday the 24th. I think people can get in from the Wednesday, is it? The Wednesday the 25th? So around that time. But if we go through those 3 days, 4 days, isn't it? Or 5 days, even up to Sunday. That period there. Just want to draw your attention to these dots, because they're the different types of weather that are possible of those 30 different ones. And if we just run through them there, the size of the blob is how likely they are. Don't worry too much about that, but I just wanted to highlight the distribution, because at this stage it's really too early to say anything with any definition about exactly what the weather's going to be like. But I just wanted to highlight there are more drier scenarios than there are wetter scenarios. Go through those few days again. That scatter plot there suggesting that there's a higher chance of it being drier than it being wetter, and probably cooler, but that just means cooler than the long-term average. If it's dry and it's sunny, it'll still feel pretty warm. But generally speaking, there are more drier solutions than wetter solutions. That was all I wanted to draw your attention to there. That's all we can say at this stage. It's over 2 weeks away to Glastonbury, so keep up to date with Met Office forecast. Follow us on TikTok. We're posting about it pretty regularly on there in the coming weeks. But at the moment, there is a higher chance of it being drier than average than being wetter than average. That's pretty much about all we can say about Glastonbury at this stage. Right, I think that's about it from me for today. It's been an intense one. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, do hit that like button. Do give us a thumbs up. That would be fantastic. Do keep your comments coming as well. Make sure you're checking out everything that we're doing across social media. I've mentioned our TikTok channel. You can follow us on WhatsApp as well. We post regularly on there. If you've not subscribed to this YouTube channel, then make sure you do that as well, because that's pretty much the only place that you can watch the deep dive, and you can get it on your TV as well, on your YouTube channel also. So yeah, make sure you've hit subscribe. Do give us that like button. Do keep the comments coming. Watch out for us on Friday. It'll be the Weather Studio Live. I think it's me and Aidan will have the 10-day trend tomorrow as well, so he'll have more details about the thunderstorms at the weekend and what could happen as we go into next week. But that's it from me for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again soon.